In the heart of an empire that spanned the known world, a silent killer was at work. It wasn't a barbarian horde at the gates, nor a plague sweeping through the cities. It was something far more insidious, something held in the palm of every Roman citizen. This is the story of how Rome's money died, and how the collapse of a single coin, the silver denarius, brought an entire civilization to its knees. For centuries, the denarius was the lifeblood of the Roman Empire, struck from nearly pure silver. It was a symbol of trust, power, and stability. With this, quia legionary was paid, a senator conducted business, and a farmer bought his tools. It fueled the construction of aqueducts and amphitheaters, and financed the campaigns that expanded Rome's borders. The denarius was more than just currency. It was the promise of Roman strength, a guarantee of value recognized from the misty shores of Britain to the sun-scorched deserts of Egypt. But empires, like the metals they mint, can be corrupted. The first signs of decay appeared subtly. The year is 64 AD. A great fire has just ravaged Rome, and Emperor Nero, in his infinite ambition, needs funds to rebuild the city and construct his lavish golden house. But the state coffers are running low. So he makes a fateful decision. He orders the mint to reduce the silver content of the denarius by a mere 10%, mixing in cheaper metals like copper. To the naked eye, the coin looked the same, but it was a lie, a betrayal of the trust that underpinned the entire Roman economy. This was the first act of what we now call debasement, and it opened a Pandora's box that could never be closed. As the years rolled by, emperor after emperor faced the same dilemma: soaring military costs, extravagant public works, and an unwillingness to raise taxes on the powerful elite. Their solution was always the same: debase the currency. Under Trajan, the silver content was 85%. By Marcus Aurelius's reign, it was down to 75%. Septimius Severus slashed it to just 50%. Each new emperor inherited a financial crisis and passed on an even greater one to his successor. They were essentially printing money. What did this mean for the average Roman? Imagine being a soldier on the frontier, risking your life for an empire that paid you in coins that were worth less and less each year. Or a merchant who sold his goods for a bag of silver, only to find that by the time he went to buy supplies, his money had lost a significant chunk of its purchasing power. This is the essence of inflation. As the government pumped more and more debased coins into the economy, prices for everything from bread to olive oil to land began to skyrocket. Trust, the invisible foundation of any economy, began to crumble. People started hoarding the older, purer silver coins while trying to spend the new, worthless ones as quickly as possible. This is a classic economic principle known as Gresham's law. Bad money drives out good. Trade, which had once flowed freely across the empire's magnificent roads, began to grind to a halt. Why accept a coin from a distant province when you couldn't be sure of its true value? The interconnected economy of the Roman world started to fracture. Barter replaced currency. Regions turned inward, becoming self-sufficient manors. The grand, unified market that had made Rome so prosperous was destroyed. By the mid-3rd century, the situation had spiraled into a full-blown crisis. The crisis of the 3rd century was a period of near-constant civil war, with dozens of would-be emperors fighting for a throne that was little more than a death sentence. To pay their armies, these short-lived rulers debased the currency at a breathtaking pace. By the reign of Gallienus, the so-called silver coin contained less than 5% silver. It was little more than a bronze disc with a thin silver wash, a ghost of its former self. Hyperinflation was rampant. A measure of wheat that cost 200 denarii at the beginning of the century now cost tens of thousands. The economy was in free fall. The social fabric tore apart. The middle class was wiped out, their savings rendered worthless. The gap between the ultra-wealthy landowners, who could retreat to their self-sufficient villas, and the impoverished masses grew into a chasm. Riots over food became common in the cities. Soldiers, loyal only to the general who could pay them the most, became kingmakers, plunging the empire into endless civil war. The government's inability to manage its finances destroyed its legitimacy in the eyes of its people. When the state cheats its citizens through its currency, why should the citizens remain loyal to the state? It's tempting to see this as ancient history, a relic of a fallen empire. But the lessons of the denarius are chillingly relevant today. Look at the Weimar Republic in 1920s Germany, where people carried wheelbarrows full of cash just to buy a loaf of bread. Look at modern Zimbabwe or Venezuela, where hyperinflation has obliterated savings and shattered societies. These are not isolated events. They are echoes of Rome. And what of our own time? We no longer use silver coins, but fiat currency's money backed by nothing more than government decree and public trust. Central banks can create trillions of dollars, pounds, or euros with a few keystrokes. We see massive government debt, endless deficit spending, and the slow but steady erosion of our money's purchasing power. A dollar today buys far less than it did 50 or even 20 years ago. This is inflation, the same force that brought Rome to its knees, playing out in slow motion. We've just given it a modern name: quantitative easing. The Roman Empire didn't fall in a single day. It was a long, slow decay, a hollowing out from within. The collapse of its money was not the only cause, but it was the catalyst that accelerated every other problem: political instability, social unrest, and military weakness. When the currency failed, trust failed. When trust failed, trade failed. And when trade failed, the intricate web that held the empire together simply disintegrated. By the time the barbarian armies arrived at the gates of Rome, the empire was already a corpse, rotted from the inside out by fiscal irresponsibility. What does history teach us? It teaches that real wealth is not the number printed on a piece of paper, but the productive capacity of a society and the trust that binds it together. It teaches that governments, ancient or modern, are always tempted to solve their financial problems by devaluing their currency. And it teaches that once that trust is broken, it is almost impossible to restore. The story of the denarius is a timeless warning etched in corroded metal and crumbling stone. History doesn't repeat itself, but its patterns are undeniable. And for those who fail to understand them, the consequences can be devastating. Thank you for joining the financial historian on this journey through time. If you found this exploration of history and finance valuable, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more stories of how money has shaped our world. Stay curious and stay informed.